Hi guys! First of all, thank you so much for the amazing response to my last video. I'm really touched and overwhelmed by all of the kind comments that I got, and I so appreciate it. So one of the comments had this fantastic suggestion to make a video about the planners that I used throughout 2019 and which ones worked and didn't work. So I am going to talk about that today. And as you can see, I have quite an elaborate stack of planners here before me, and they're all divided into different categories. So we're going to start off with the planners that I used throughout 2019 and that I'm continuing to use now in 2020. So you've actually seen these before if you watched my last video, but I'll just quickly go through them and then we'll go on to look at some other planners that I am either not using anymore because they're finished or because they didn't work. So the first one is my trusty Hobonichi Cousin, my work planner, which you've seen in many videos, and this is my loyal companion and has been for the past 5 years. And as I mentioned in my last video, the reason that I'm not switching this over yet is because it's a spring cousin, so it doesn't actually end until April 2020, and I'll be ordering a new one in February. So I've been using this since the end of March 2019, and it's absolutely fantastic. It's my favorite planner, and I'll do a separate video, I think, going through my setup in more depth. So that's my cousin. I'm sorry about the angle here. I have a different setup now, which I am trying to work with, and it's kind of still a work in progress. So the next one is my fat hobo, and I really appreciated all the nice comments that I got about my fat hobo, which, just in case you didn't see it last time, looks like this after a full year of being heavily stickerated. So it's quite lopsided, but it's going to even out over the next 4 years. So this is a 5-year Techo A5 size from Hobonichi, and I started it at the beginning of 2019, and my idea originally was to use it as a home planner, and then I figured out at some point that it actually wasn't ideal for that, because for a home planner somehow it's better to have a whole week at a glance, and because this is daily it's just not very practical. So I started using it just as a fun, pretty planner to decorate as much as I want and record like kind of a snapshot of the day's events. So I sometimes plan in advance, you know, like say if I'm going to be away, I list where I'm going and I just decorate it with stickers for the time that I'm away. And then when I'm at home, I use it for a combination of various tasks, work tasks, appointments, non-work tasks. So it's just kind of fun. And it worked really well for me throughout all of 2019. I did kind of rotate the uses a little bit. So in some periods, I was just using it to write down nice things that I was planning for myself for the upcoming day, kind of like a positivity planner. That was after I was initially using it as a home planner. And then at some point later, I switched back to using it more as a kind of catch-all planner where I put down all of my tasks. Not all of my tasks, but just like a snapshot of the main tasks and appointments for the day. And that's how I'm using it now. So strictly speaking, this planner isn't really necessary, as in I can get by with my work planner, my personal planner, and the home planner, but it's just fun, and I'm kind of seeing it more as a creative project, and I really want to see what it looks like after 5 years when it's been completely covered in stickers from top to bottom. So I only write on stickers in this. I don't write anything on the actual pages, and you can see this is how the first year has gone, and so I've now started over again using it in 2020, and it will carry on until 2023, the end of 2023. So this was a big success, even though I haven't actually used it continuously for exactly the same thing. But I've still been using it in the same way, as in, it's not like I started using it just with pen and ink and then switched over to stickers or the other way around. I've been using it with stickers continuously the whole time, and I'm going to keep doing that. So I would class this as a planner that worked in 2019 and that I'll keep using. Then the third one in this category is my A6 5-year Techo, which I actually started in 2018. So this runs from 2018 to 2022. And this was my first 5-year Techo that I ever had. I bought this the first year that they came out when they only had the A6 size. And I talked about this in my last video as well. The thing that's cool about this is that it's quite small because it's A6 size. You don't have a lot of space to write, which is great because that means you can easily fill it and feel like you've accomplished something and you're keeping up with it, and it only takes a minute. So on the left side of the page, I write down everything that I did in the day, or like the highlights of the day kind of. And then on the right side, I write down 5 things that I'm grateful for or that I particularly enjoyed that year, that year. And as you can see, I've now started over again using it for the 3rd year, and every year I'm writing in a different color of ink. So this is where it's really coming into its own, because it's so much fun to see not only what I did last year, but what I did the year before, because this is now the 3rd year, and what I did in 2018 on the same day is starting to feel a little bit remote. I can still kind of remember quite well what I did last year. It doesn't seem that long ago, but what I did 2 years ago is starting to feel more like a memory, you know, that I wouldn't necessarily still have if I weren't looking at this. So this is really, really fun, and I can't wait to keep using this throughout all of 2019 and, you know, see three years worth filled in for every day. It's really exciting, and then to carry on. So this I've been using for 2 full years, and it's going into its 3rd year, and I highly recommend this if you have been thinking about a 5-year Techo and you're not sure. The A6 size is just really convenient, really portable, really light and small, and it's not too intimidating to use it. So this has definitely been a planner that worked in 2019. Okay, now we go on to the planners that worked, but that I'm no longer using because they are finished and I've gone on to a new version. So this is my 2019 weeks. I had the Sneaker Mega Weeks, which I really loved. This was the first year that they came out with the sneakers, 2019, and so I decided to experiment with it, and it was a great success. I really liked it, and I would have got another one this year, except that I liked the hardback apple green cover, and I didn't really like any of the colors that they brought out for the Sneaker Weeks, but I would definitely try one again in future. So for 2019, I decided to use this as my personal planner, which wasn't new. I've been using a Weeks as my personal planner since 2016, so that's really a core part of my planning system. But every year I've done something slightly different with it. So what I did last time was I was using stickers in it, and this time I decided to doodle and then color in the doodles. So you can see here, this is a kind of dashboard page, and I used this page for all kinds of different things. I started off with my bank balance, and then I started using it as a step tracker, and then in November, I decided to stop buying stuff from Amazon, which was like a huge thing for me because I have been an Amazon addict for many, many years. And so I used this as a no Amazon tracker, basically. And that worked really well, and I stopped buying stuff from Amazon, and it was much easier than I thought. And so that's kind of served its purpose. And then that was basically the end of the year. Then I used the monthly tracker, well, the monthly spread as a tracker to note down when I'd like taken my vitamins and other medication, when we did things like change the sheets, or when one of the dogs had a checkup, things like that. And then I also used it as an order tracker, and that was pretty consistent throughout the year. And then I used the weekly spreads for day-specific to-dos on the left and more general notes on the right. So things that had to be done either on a particular day that there wasn't any room on here, or a shopping list, or things that just had to be done sometime during the week, or random notes. These are dimensions for a shelf because we were trying to find baskets to fit the shelf, that kind of thing. And I really enjoyed decorating it with the doodles and then coloring it in. But as I mentioned in my last video, coloring things in with the colored pencils started to feel like a bit of a burden, and so towards the end of the year I started doing it less and less, and it was because of the coloring. It wasn't because of the doodles. It was because I started to feel like it was kind of too much of a commitment to have to do the doodles, which was easy, and then color in. So I decided to stop doing that for 2020 and just do the doodles. And then I also had daily spreads, which, let's see, I put in here. Where did I put them? So for the daily spreads, I would just draw out a week's, like the dates for the week, and then I would do some doodles, and then I would just use them for any kind of like daily planning that I needed to do, usually in the evening, but just whenever I wanted to write a list of stuff to do. And that worked really well also, and I've carried that over into 2020. And then the rest of the pages were just notes for whatever I wanted to write something about. So for example, here I made a list of songs from the Eurovision choir version, which I was watching with a colleague while we were on a doing field work. And then I drew out a design for some changes that I wanted to make to our flat, moving furniture around and stuff. So just anything that I needed to note down, basically. And I ended the year with some blank pages, I think about maybe 20 or 30. So that just tells me that for 2020, I can be a bit more expansive and I don't have to worry about saving space. I can just write as much as I want in those pages, because with the Weeks Mega, you definitely have enough. So that was a planner that worked in 2019, and I've now started over with a new Weeks. This is my 2020 Weeks, which I showed in the most recent video. So this was definitely a success. Then the next planner in this category was my Asics English Hobonichi, which I used as a journal, and I used it throughout the whole of the year, and I wrote on every single page, and it was really, really easy. It didn't take up much time, and I found it to be very pleasant and therapeutic, and I really enjoyed it. So this one has now been archived, and I've started a new 2020 English planner, and this is going to be a permanent fixture in my lineup, I think, because it worked really well. So this was the first year that I tried using an English planner and that I kept a journal, and I was really surprised with myself because I didn't think that it would work so well. I thought that it would be more difficult and that I wouldn't be able to keep up and that I would find it stressful, but I actually found it really easy and enjoyable. So that was a nice surprise for 2019. Again, I think it's because it's A6, so it doesn't feel too overwhelming. It doesn't take you too long to fill in, and you feel like you've accomplished something because you can just write a whole page worth of journaling, and it only takes about 10 minutes. So that was a very nice unexpected success of 2019, and I've got a new one for 2020, which is here. So we now move on to the category of planners that didn't work so well, and the first one in this category is my Hobonichi Original 2019 spring version. So this is the Japanese version of the A6 planner. So this was the English version, which I had great success with, and the original is kind of funny with me because I've used this on and off since 2015, and I've somehow never quite found something that it really, really works for me. So I've tried it as a home planner, I've tried it as a personal planner, I've tried it as a daily planner, which was probably the most successful. I've tried it as a gratitude log, and I've tried it for various other things, expense tracker. So I've often ended up switching over the course of the year while I've had one of these, and never really found anything that quite stuck. So for this one, I bought it to use as a journal because I was having so much fun with my English planner, the English journal, that I decided to try this one for the same purpose, but I used my English planner in the evening kind of as a wind down activity to just go over the events of the day, and I decided that I would use this one as a morning journal because I've always had huge difficulty getting up in the morning, and I thought that this would help me because if I had some kind of incentive like getting to write a page of journaling, that would help me get up early. So that was what I originally started it for. I was using the monthly spreads just to jot down something that I love and kind of am looking forward to for the day. And then I was going to use this to journal about whatever I felt like. So it started off okay. As you can see, I filled in a few pages and I was really enjoying it, but I ended up doing it in the afternoon or evening. And what happened was that because I just could not get up an extra 10 minutes early to journal, despite the fact that I really wanted to, I just couldn't. I ended up basically just having 2 pages of journaling to do in the evening, this and this. And so it was like I was just kind of doing an A5 pages worth of journaling basically in 2 different planners. And so I stopped doing that because I felt like it wasn't quite working. Then I did kind of try to pick it up again, and it was kind of on and off in that capacity. And then sometime around the end of May, I started using it to do tarot draws. So James got interested in tarot and was doing a tarot course. And so I thought, well, I'll just like draw 1 tarot card and then write it down. And then that will be like my sort of tarot meditation for the day, you know, and I'll see how I can apply that to my life. And so I was doing that for a while. But it felt kind of annoying not being able to keep up with it because I couldn't keep up with it every day. And so at some point I just stopped. And then it was blank for a while, maybe a month or so. And then I started using it to write down things that I was looking forward to for the day. And at the end of the day, I would jot down some accomplishments that I'd done during the day that made me feel like I had actually achieved more than I realized during the day. So I started using it like that in August, and I actually carried on like that until the end of the calendar year. And it worked so well that I decided to incorporate that into my planning system in a more long-term way, and I started using my new A5 5-year Techo for that. Okay, so another planner that didn't quite work in 2019 was this Amy Tangerine Happy Planner from the Be Happy Box collab between Amy Tangerine and the Happy Planner that came out in June. I absolutely fell in love with it. The moment I saw this Be Happy box, I was just like, oh my goodness, because I love rainbows. I love anything that has bright colors, and it just really, really spoke to me. So I ordered the Be Happy box, not knowing what I was going to do with it, which is usually a bad idea, but I just thought I just have to order this and I'll figure out what to do with it later. And so I actually did. I started using this as a planner to write down everything to do with planners. So basically things like how often I was using each of my daily planners. So I started tracking that. And for One Book July, I decided to use all of my planners every day. So I was using this to keep track of that. And then for the weeklies, I would write down all kinds of planner problems, planner issues, anything that I was thinking about, lists, lineups. And it was really fun, and I liked it a lot. Then in August, I used this to track the Hobo release. So, you know, before the new Hobo release in the beginning of September, they have this like month of build up in August. And so I was like tracking all of the things that they were building up to and making little notes about which ones I liked and which ones I didn't like. And I started decorating it. And so I was just doing all kinds of planner journaling. And then I would track orders. And it was really a lot of fun. And I absolutely loved it. But as it went on and I started teaching again in the end of September, my schedule got a bit busier. I started to feel like I couldn't keep up with it every day, and then I would end up having all of these days to like kind of backfill, and that made me feel stressed. And I thought the point of a planner is to be fun and to be able to keep track of my planner orders and write down ideas for videos and stuff like that. It's not supposed to be like another kind of daily journaling thing that I feel stressed about. And so in the middle of October, I switched over to my B6 Leuchtturm, which I've been using as my planner, and I talked about that in my last video. And so this has been hugely successful. So this was another one where it was kind of like a half success, as in the concept really worked, but I realized that a weekly planner wasn't a good place to do it, because it's the sort of thing where I want to have blank pages to write about planner related issues when I need them, but a vertical weekly lineup wasn't ideal for it because it made me feel like I had to write every day, and it also gave me this set amount of space. Whereas actually, some days I might want a whole page, and other days I might not need anything more than a couple of lines, and some days I might not use it at all. So it was a really fun experiment, and I'm so happy that I had this because it let me develop the concept of the planner, which is now a beloved part of my lineup, but it just wasn't ideally suited to it. And I still love this planner, and it's got another 6 months left on it. So I'm keeping this on my shelf, and I'm just thinking that when a use becomes apparent for it, I'll have it. And it's not that hard to redate Happy Planner pages, I feel like. So I think I'll just keep this here because I absolutely love the design, and I spent a lot of time setting it up and personalizing it. And so it's kind of like a half success, I guess, sort of like this one. It wasn't perfect for what I wanted it for, but it actually led to something great happening. So that was also a sort of failure / success. Then we have another Happy Planner. This is the Paint Splashes Dashboard Layout Happy Planner, and I was using this as a home planner, and I started using it in July when it started. And so this was for writing things down like appointments and to-dos that involve both of us. And then I was using the monthlies to track home-related stuff like flea medicine, haircut, changing the sheets, stuff like that. And it worked well for that. The only issue was that I felt like it was kind of bulky. And that's really my issue with the classic size Happy Planner in general, is that it's a little bit big and bulky. And so it stayed on the table in our living room, and that was fine. But I kind of felt like it wasn't, I don't know. As you know, I always gravitate towards bound planners. And so as soon as Happy Planner came out with their bound planner range, I was just like, oh my goodness, that's what we're going to use for the home planner. I'm switching. Once I put in this Yo Sushi menu because they have a vegan night once a week, and we went to that. And so I put in the menu in here, and that was really what I thought I should be doing more of, having a disc bound planner, is taking advantage of the flexibility of the discs, but I really didn't, except for this, which was not at all necessary. I just put it in there because I had the discs, and I thought, why not? But the dashboard layout itself I liked, except that I found that we were actually only using this side. So this side, sometimes I would use as a shopping list, but most of the time this stayed blank, and generally this was blank because I would usually put the to-dos on an individual day of the week. So I found this part of the layout really useful because I would put my schedule on here, and then James could see at a glance if I was at home or out for the day, which was helpful to him. And then I would put to-dos on the dailies and just transfer them over from day to day if they didn't get done. So I kind of felt like it wasn't making the most use of the space, and that it was a little bit redundant having this. I like the idea of this in principle. I really like the dashboard layout of the Happy Planner, but it just felt like for us, something like a horizontal layout where you have more space to write to-dos on individual days would be making a better use of the space. And so as soon as December finished, I switched over to this bound Happy Planner, and that's what we're using now as a home planner, and that's working much better, and it also gives me some space to decorate as well. So again, the concept was good. It's just that this actual planner wasn't the best for it, but we did use it for 6 months. It's an 18-month planner, so it's still got a whole year left. And again, I'm just putting this on the shelf, and I'm going to keep it until I can think of a use for it, because somehow with Happy Planners that are disc bound, I don't feel quite as much pressure to use them during the year, even if they're dated. Just because you can rearrange things, you can take out pages, you can redate them quite easily, and because the paper is thick, I feel like there's not so much stress about putting a whole bunch of stickers on for the dates and then having it get lumpy, which would happen if it was a bound planner. So I feel less stressed about having this dated planner on my shelf like a ticking time bomb. It bothers me a little bit that it's not being used, but it doesn't bother me as much as it would if it were a bound planner, I guess. So the last one in the lineup is, I think, the most unsuccessful of all of them. And this I actually bought originally to use as a home planner. So when this came out in March or April, I fell in love with it, both because I just loved the design. I thought that this was so beautiful and elegant, and James really liked it as well. And then I also liked the idea of having this dashboard area followed by checklists. And the reason that I thought this would be good is because I often give James tasks to do around the house, and that sounds really bossy, but I've talked about this before. He finds it helpful because he has ADHD, so he forgets to do a lot of like practical things. And so he says he finds it really helpful if I write them down and then he can check it. And I like that because obviously I always like an excuse to have another planner. So I was just going to write down things that I'd asked him to do around the house and put them in here. And I thought because it's not dated by day, you can date it if you want to, but it's not dated. You just have this long list of to-dos, and it's really helpful because if you don't get some stuff done, you just still have this page open, and as long as this page is open, you can see what hasn't been done. So it's just like basically a big book of checklists with a nice floral design, and we both really liked that. So originally the plan was to use this as a home planner. And then I found out about the Paint Splashes video, the Paint Splashes planner, and that was from another planner video, which I will try to link down below, because it was a great idea. So she actually had this planner, and she Franken-planned them so that she would have the checklist and the dashboard layout. And I thought, that's such a good idea. I want to do that too. So I got really enthusiastic and I bought this one. And then I did Franken-plan them for a while, and I was keeping things like the monthly trackers in this one, and then in this one I put down like my whereabouts for the month and like an overview of the month. And so I did this, I kind of decorated this for July and August, but then I kind of found that we actually weren't using both of them, and we were just using the dashboard layout, which was helpful because it had the dates. And so my original thought was to use this for to-dos and this for appointments, and you'd have both of them next to each other, like one page after the next, Franken-planned. But I ended up just writing the to-dos in here because there really was enough room for it. I think if you were using these two as your main planner, like a catch-all planner, and you Franken-plan them, then it would be useful to have lots of space for checklists and lots of space for your like weekly appointments and to-dos and stuff. But as it just wasn't really getting used. And so I divided them all up again and put them back into two planners. And this one just remained unused for the rest of the year. And this is kind of sad because I really only used it for July and August, I would say. And I hardly used any of the checklists at all. And this is another 18-month planner, so it does still have a full year available. And in this case, I'm pretty relaxed about it because it's mostly undated. So if you have to redate it, you really only have to redate the monthlies and then this here, which you could still use for the relevant month in whatever year you're using it in, and the rest of it's totally undated. So I think that this is actually a pretty good planner to end up being unused because I know at some point I'll be able to come back to it. So I have these 3 classic size happy planners on my shelf at the moment that are not being used, but they still look beautiful. I love the way they look on the shelf, and they all have metal discs. Well, this one has the plastic rhombical discs, but I love them because they're rainbow colored. And I just like looking at them, and I don't feel too stressed about it because I think I'll be able to repurpose them at some point. So there you have it, a large collection of planners that worked and didn't work that I used throughout 2019, and then some of their new 2020 iterations. So I think altogether it was a really successful year for planners, and I enjoyed experimenting, and I feel like I didn't end up with too many planners in my graveyard, and the ones that are there I'll still be able to use at some point. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and I will be back again soon with another video. Thank you so much for watching and for all your support. I really appreciate it. Bye!